Well, good evening. Welcome to the May 19th edition of Sports on Sunset. This is going to be a fun one because while we can come to points of agreement on certain things, for example, this one is one where I know for a fact that I'm not going to convince him of a damn thing, and he's not going to convince me of a damn thing. But it should be fun, spirited, and if one of us winds up hurt, it's probably going to be me. Tomorrow is the debut of the, probably, what is it, 14th season maybe? The WNBA kicks off its 16th season tomorrow. He is a former Sparks season ticket holder, and I want to be able to give you, obviously, the chance to state a case instead of just having one guy just rant. So, with that said, I'll give you the basic of my thesis, and you go at it. The bottom line is this. Obviously, in the United States, you have the opportunity to put anything as a business out there, for the most part, make your money off it in the public arena. That's capitalism. We will pay money to pay to see things that impress us and to be entertained. In my opinion, the WNBA does neither of these things. It's not entertaining and it's not impressive. That's my thesis. Go for it.
Okay, here's where your thesis is flawed. Who pays to go watch golf? People don't, the gallery doesn't pay to go watch golf. They show up. They might pay a fee, like a club fee, but ultimately they don't pay to go watch each and every match. People pay to go watch women's basketball. They might, of course, not enough. Just like not enough people go watch the Clippers before Chris Paul got there. Does that mean that team doesn't exist? No, it still exists. It's still a sport. What angers me about people discounting the WNBA is that, again, they'll go watch golf, they'll watch women's golf. And, oh yeah, it's competitive. It's not. It's not even a sport. Then you got people go and watch women's tennis in Wimbledon, men's tennis and women's tennis. Same thing. Like, oh, it's competitive.
Tennis is a sport.
Yeah, it's a sport. But you can watch women play tennis, but you don't want to watch women play basketball. The women don't hit the ball in tennis as hard as the men. What's the difference? It's just, I think where it lies is that most men believe that every woman in the WNBA or every woman that plays a truly competitive full contact sport is gay. And that's not anywhere near the truth. Sure, there's more than a few gay women playing basketball. But there's also more than a few gay men playing basketball. What was the kid's name? Greg Hill or something? He's a 7-foot transsexual now. So let us not forget John Beach.
Oh, of course.
But so there's people that are gay in every sport, and that's not. I think the other main reason is that people say is uncompetitive is because of jealousy. Half of the people that say that they couldn't watch it can't do any of the things that these women are doing. You could say it's the lack of athleticism. I saw Glenn Davis miss a wide open two-handed dunk. Didn't even make it to the rim. Meanwhile, you got people like Lisa Leslie. Sure, she missed her first dunk attempt in the WNBA, but she made the others.
Kyle Foster.
Yeah, Kyle Foster. And you got Candace Parker in the league. You got Sylvia Fowles. You got Maya Moore dunking. There's plenty of women in there now that the athleticism is caught up, to look at it as the early NBA days, where you had these unathletic white dudes. The first couple of years of the WNBA, you had Zhang Hai Shaw, who played for the Sparks. 6'8", couldn't get off the rim whatsoever. A couple of years later, you had Margot Dita come in the league. who's 7'2". Rest in peace, Margot Dita. She died last year. 7'2", refused to dunk. She didn't want to dunk. There's been plenty of tall women that have played that just don't want to dunk. The only person that was trying was Lisa Leslie. Lauren Jackson can dunk. She just doesn't want to. I guess where my argument lies is this. It's exciting if you enjoy basketball. You don't have to watch it just for dunks. It's just as fast. There's people doing the same crossover dribbles. Yeah.
Here's my counterpoints to a lot of things that you had just said. One, you're talking about the PGA. The PGA is a tour. There's not a PGA team. I don't like golf any more than you do. But with that said, I can understand why golf exists. The fact of the matter is, are enough people entertained to support that? That's the thesis that I'm offering. In addition to that, you mentioned tennis. Look, you've known me for quite a while. I won't deny that there are probably a number of people who issue the cheap shots about women athletes. I don't think for one moment my hatred of WNBA has anything to do with women. Women's tennis, as far as I'm concerned, is actually more entertaining than men's tennis.
Yes, it is.
Because the upgrades in technology with the racket. What happens in men's tennis, because unfortunately in this case they are physically stronger, you're talking about 110-mile-an-hour serves. Who's going to return that? So in women's tennis, because you have a chance to return the serve, you have some of those epic, lengthy runs that you used to get in the 1970s, like between Borg and McEnroe. So I don't have a problem with people liking tennis. And it's also obviously not about whether or not I think black women can be successful, because black women are successful in tennis as well in this arena. Look, again.
Don't forget about Alexander Stevenson. Dr. J's daughter.
I will forget that. Look, you're saying that we are jealous of these women doing things we can't do. Unfortunately, I disagree with that assessment.
Also,
because we will pay to see things that we can't do if it's entertaining, and unfortunately what that means is dunking. And there are, you mentioned 4 people, and I will acknowledge, look, you mentioned the Lisa Leslie dunk, or non-dunk in the first game. One of the main reasons, in my opinion, that the WNBA has struggled is its own damn fault. And I'm not talking about Lisa Leslie.
True.
I'm saying what happened was, when it was first marketed, they had a 4-pronged strategy at its inception. One is that we are on the same level as the men. They had things all over the place, because basketball is basketball and athletes are athletes.
Yeah.
Wrong. They were not on the same level as the men. They weren't. Particularly in the first X number of years. There was no way.
The first 4 years, the first 4 years, I admit, it was seriously lacking in a lot of things, mostly because it was scattershot. Most of the best women's players, like the 2 leagues, had divided the best players. So you had the ABL and you had the WNBA going after each other.
It was
the ABL folded.
It was a massively bad strategy. Also, the other thing they did with the NBA, you choose a particular athlete on each team and hype them. Hey, watch Rebecca Lobo and the New York Liberty.
That was a huge mistake.
Yes, absolutely.
Rebecca Lobo should not have been faced with.
The third thing that they did also was to say, you should watch us because we have sex appeal. That was ESPN's strategy.
Huge mistake.
Huge mistake. Aside from that, look, yes, this is not a commentary on what these women look like, because that's not the point.
But that's the early strategy that they should not have taken, that they did take.
Right.
That was a huge mistake. You don't see the men's game advertising sex appeal.
Yeah, exactly. Now they did have ads of Jordan wearing briefs for Hanes, but that wasn't an ad for the NBA. That was Lisa Leslie, I hate saying this, it's a cheap shot. Lisa Leslie is not a real model. But with all that said, look, we are not stupid. We can do stupid things, but by and large, the public isn't that stupid. We rejected those sales pitches. Vince McMahon tried the same kind of sales pitch with the XFL, and the XFL went down in flames.
You just likened the XFL, the WNBA to the XFL.
Yes, I did. But I will say this, the XFL was more entertaining than the WNBA.
If there was a woman calling herself "he hate me" or "she hate me," sure, everybody would watch the WNBA. But I would watch. Who's the worst team in the? I would watch the Atlanta Dream play. if Candace Wiggins changed her name to.
I will say this. I disagree. I'm glad you enjoyed that, by the way. I disagree with the assertion that the WNBA has gotten significantly better. Here's the point. My thinking is...
You disagree?
I disagree. Because I just didn't watch the first game and said this sucks. I didn't say it sucks before the first game. I gave the WNBA 3 legitimate shots to just entertain me. And it wasn't the first 3 games. It was like the first 3 games of year 1, a couple of games the next year, and a couple of games the year after that. No way was it any good. And I remember the first one. Look, it was a brand new league, and you're like, okay, the play's going to be rough around the edges, and you know where I'm going with this because we talked about it. Lisa Leslie was on a breakaway for the Sparks, and she... Please. And Lisa Leslie had a breakaway, nobody in front of her, nobody around her for miles. Everybody knew she had it done. She got nothing but the bottom of the rim. That was horrifying. But with that said, the problem was the rest of the play around that game and the other games that I have seen in the first few years matched that ineptitude. It was not getting any better. And the fact of the matter is that there were teams that were putting together decent teams at that point.
Houston.
Exactly. But the Houston Comets folded. Why? There was no market for it.
No, they folded because of shitty management. Basically.
But there was no market for it.
That team was selling out every game. Every game. Like they won the first 4 championships. You don't think there was a market for winners?
I'm telling you this because of the fact that in addition to that, look, Detroit, they lost the shock.
Yeah. No, that's more or less because of team movement.
And the Sparks are always in financial trouble. Always.
Until this year where they started selling advertising on jerseys just like the overseas.
Well, they were selling advertising on jerseys for the last few years. I think they were the first team that did that.
No, I think the Phoenix Mercury were.
Okay, well, regardless of who broke ground with that, I know I'd seen the Farmers logo because when Leslie had the first... Remember, it was like 8 years before the first dunk in the league. I got one more point before we break topic on this. The hubris of David Stern is underlined and exclamation pointed by the WNBA. It's an example of his own hubris and his own overreach. Too much expansion of the NBA was under his watch. He's always wanted to make his niche beyond what it already has been in basketball lore. Because, unfortunately, he became the commissioner around the time where Magic, Bird, Dr. J, and Michael Jordan came into the league. And so I guess he was thinking he wasn't getting enough credit, so he expanded the league. He also wanted to expand into Europe and Asia, which would have been this huge financial risk, which would have completely jeopardized the league, because Canada didn't embrace the NBA. So if he couldn't expand his own product, he wanted to make the NBA year-round, the WNBA. It has a faint pulse. It just has this ridiculous faint pulse. I mean, and by the way, when Stern leaves, here's an example of how he's extended himself in the wrong way. There will never be a major professional franchise, probably in our lifetimes, in Las Vegas. The WNBA, in order to survive, is like, yeah, fuck it, put it in a casino. We don't care. Put the Connecticut Sun in a casino. That's how bad it is. The WNBA is on borrowed time, in my opinion. Because once Stern is gone, these teams are going to have to rely on themselves. His replacement is not going to have the same patience that he
They're already self-sustaining. That's the issue. You're saying David Stern is not. David Stern is not the commissioner. Val Ackerman. Is Val Ackerman still a commissioner? I think she's still a commissioner. Like, she is. The WNBA is running itself for the most part. Sure, you still have some NBA owners that own the WNBA teams, but like the Seattle Storm, that ownership the Seattle Supersonics have nothing to do with it.
Right, I know. They eventually sold off. The Sparks are no longer owned by the Bus Band.
Right. There's a lot of teams that are basically like, you have a lot of WNBA teams losing money. Granted, there's I think maybe 5 losing money. How many NBA teams are claiming that they lose money?
I cannot confirm. I don't know. In this part, I don't know. But I don't know if any of them really are.
Right.
Because the fact of the matter is that TV contract is so large.
Exactly. If you had teams, if you had the WNBA teams getting the kind of television exposure,
you can't make that argument.
No, I can't. If they had the same kind of television exposure that they did in the beginning, the first year, where they were pushing the WNBA hard.
But they did. They had a major network contract and ESPN.
I'm saying now. If they had now what they had then, with the quality of the game that they have now, with the quality of players, with the people didn't expect the college players to go anywhere but overseas back when it first started.
And I would argue that they still should do that.
They still do. They still go overseas, and that's where they make their millions.
But by the way, that's where the market is for women's basketball.
It's also here if we embrace it. The issue isn't whether or not it's exciting or not. It's whether or not we're willing to embrace women's sport.
And I
basically
go ahead.
It's like Australia. Australia has a women's football league, and I actually mean tackle football, not soccer, football. And it's not advancing like any other sport in their country because no one's interested in watching it. It's the same here. If there's interest beyond like sex appeal, people hype Candace Parker like, oh, she's attractive. They ignore the fact that she has an all-around game. And you have people, next year, you're going to have 3 people that will change the culture of the WNBA, going out of college and into the WNBA. You'll have Candace Diggins. You'll have Elena Delle Donne and Brittany Griner. Those 3 will probably be 1, 2, and 3 in the WNBA draft. And their games will look at it this way. You know how nobody was really watching and they didn't have live TV contracts for the NBA until really Magic Johnson and Larry Bird came into the league and people were, hey, this is a great matchup. Wait until next year.
I've been hearing that for 15 years, brother.
You've been hearing it for 15 years, but there hasn't been anybody to come in there. Now there will be.
Why don't you tell them what's on your mind, dude?
What's on my mind is, I just came from a soccer game, a women's soccer game. My first soccer game, like I've become a fan of soccer through watching women's.
Fuck out of here.
I'm not lying. My roommate plays soccer, so I started going to women's soccer games as support of a friend, support of my roommate. And through watching my first game that I went to, I watched the game before hers. And there was an all-out brawl between 2 rec league soccer teams. Women were throwing each other around like rag dolls. It was awesome. So much like my first hockey game, where I went to my first hockey game, the Peoria Rivermen. And there were 6 fights in the first period.
Hell yeah.
That's hockey. Now I go to women's soccer games waiting to see the brawl. Because there's violence.
Are they pulling the shirts off and shit?
They might as well. There's so much violence in women's soccer. At least in rec league, that shit is awesome. I didn't watch the U.S. women's team play soccer on the Brandy Chastain throwing off her shirt. I didn't watch that shit, but I'll watch women's rec league soccer. I don't want to watch professional soccer at all. Just rec league, because they mean it. They paid $150 to join a league, and they're going to get their money's worth through fights. So everybody, support rec league's women's soccer. It's the greatest sport on the planet.
Guys, on Friday afternoon, they had one of those Norman Rockwellian scenes out at Wrigley Field. It was known before the game. Kerry Wood has said he was going to retire, and he came in the 8th inning. He faced one batter, struck him out, and then they pulled him from the game, and he left to a rousing and lengthy standing ovation. And everybody said, "Oh, isn't this wonderful? Because doesn't Kerry Wood deserve it?" No, he doesn't. Winners don't revere overpaid, injury-prone idiots. Kerry Wood, he of the 86 career wins, 75 career losses. That guy is a hero? Yeah, the Dodgers are going to do the same for Darren Dreifort any day now. It's going to happen. I mean, look, this guy is by far one of the most overhyped athletes on one of the most overhyped franchises in American history. The so-called lovable loser Chicago Cubs. They say that Chicago has a aura, this mystique. Look, I understand it with the Bears. I understand it with the Blackhawks. I do not understand it with the Chicago Cubs. Oh, Kerry Wood's a hero. Really? In his whole career, won one playoff series, a playoff series. Never got to the World Series, never got him a ring. And I remember this whole thing. Steve Bartman ought to be pissed off as hell at Kerry Wood right about now for getting that. Because Kerry Wood could have reversed Chicago's entire fortunes by beating the Marlins in Game 7 of the 2003 National League Championship Series. But he tanked. And yet you idiots in Chicago embrace him. You embrace this guy. I mean, he had more to do with the Cubs losing that series than Steve Bartman. But if you run into Steve Bartman, you guys would come off his testicles with a rusty fork and feed it to him on a paper plate. Oh, but Kerry Wood's a hero. Bernie Mac had more to do with the Chicago Cubs taking that series than Steve Bartman. Bernie Mac got on the microphone in the 7th inning stretch of that same game and called the Cubs the champs. Next thing you know, here comes Bartman minding his own business. But nobody's going to take it out on Bernie Mac. Well, obviously, he's kind of dead, yeah. And of course, we all love black comics.
Rest in peace, Bernie Mac.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, by the way, in that game where Kerry Wood was this great hero, White Sox 3, Cubs 2, final score.
Hey.
In a loser, out a loser. Kerry Wood is a big, overpaid, slurred-speaking, goatee-wearing Texas yeehaw who can't throw straight, and he has a sleepy eye to boot. There's your sports hero, Chicago. Eat on that for a week.
He threw 20 strikeouts in a game.
Yeah, so what? A broken clock is right twice a day.